and welcome to the operational budget meeting of 2021-2022 budget year. This evening, the Director of Finance, Deborah Kroll, will present the draft operational budget. The expectation is that Council will provide direction at the end of this meeting to staff with regards to the disposition of the draft budget. Members of Council were provided with copies of the operational budget on April 9th for review prior to this meeting. During the presentation, members of Council are encouraged to ask questions of the Finance Director for clarification of budget and to Department Directors for clarification of details. This meeting is being conducted with COVID-19 protocols in place for social distancing and isolation. The meeting is being conducted in Council chambers and is being live streamed on Facebook Live. Chambers are closed to the public, but the public may send questions directly to the recording secretary's email at jwest@kentville.ca. And tonight I will remember to look at the public comments before I move into or adjourn the meeting. My regrets. So this meeting is called to order. CAO Trope, could you please take the roll call?
Mayor Snow, all council is here, present and accounted for.
Excellent. Thank you very much. You have before you the proposed agenda from the Director of Finance. We have one item tonight, and that's our operating budget. If I could have a motion to accept the proposed agenda. Councillor Hundley, thank you. And the seconder? Councillor York, thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening to everybody. And it's great to be here to present to you the first draft of the operating budget for the town of Kentville for the year 2021-2022. We have an agenda that I'd like to bring before you tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the budget drivers that are part of this budget that are basically revenue streams and expenditures that we cannot escape. We have departmental expenditures next. We'll talk about each of the departments separately, the changes in each of the departments. And we're going to talk thirdly about the revenue streams and the changes in the revenue streams from the prior year. After that, we'll be talking about the proposed tax rates for residential and commercial. And after that, we'll be asking the directors who are on Facebook and on Zoom, we'll ask for your direction and some discussion. Hopefully will take place at that time. But if you have questions in the meantime, please ask them as we go. So firstly, we're going to talk about the budget drivers. First, bring to you the CAPT assessment for 2021. Pull up a slide first of the CAPT assessment for 2020. Last year, the rate was set at 1.0%. Was total CAPT in Kentville last year $18.7 million. The revenue lost at the prior year's municipal mill rate was around $266,000. The number of accounts capped last year, 1,170 of the 2,406 properties, about 48.6%. For those of you who may not know a lot about the cap is based on the CPI for Nova Scotia for the month of October as set by StatsCan. Revenue lost to CAP in 2021, and this is what I'm going to show you now. The revenue lost this year based on the 2021 municipal mill rate is $303,484. Originally, the cap was instigated in 2005 by the province to prevent sudden and dramatic increases in the assessed value of property in Nova Scotia. The cap was originally set at 10% at that time, and this stems from massive assessment tax increases that occurred along the South Shore. It changed in 2007 from 10% to a fluctuating rate based on CPI. The province feels that the cap maintains stability, predictability, and affordability for taxpayers. Most municipal governments, however, do not agree with this theory. As you can see, the cap rate for this year is much lower, it's 0.3%. We have total cap 21.5 million of our residential and resource properties, and the number of accounts capped has increased. It has increased significantly from the prior year, around 475 accounts. We now have 1,645 accounts capped of our 2,416 properties, with 68.2%. So the assessment breakdown, and this is the snapshot of the assessment breakdown for 21-22. This is derived directly from the January 1 roll. There are no allowances in this particular slide for allowances for losses or adjustments. We're looking at residential creeping up 1% from last year. 83% of our assessment base is residential based. 11% is commercial based, and 6% is the Kentville Business Park. With the residential building going on in Kentville, it's easy to understand why a residential percentage has increased. Now we're going to look at the taxable assessments. And this is after we do some calculations. This is net of the cap. This is removing the cap from the original roll and making an allowance for losses for assessment appeals. If we do that math on the background based on averages of the previous 5 years, the taxable assessment base for 2021 is $533,201,697. It's an increase of about $11.8 million or 2.3%. Residential resources up 2.6% from the prior year, and commercial is down slightly minus 0.2%. And the payments in lieu of tax from the federal and provincial governments is up about 3.7%. Most of this relates to the provincial properties, the Justice Center in Kentville. The county, by the way, has retained the garage at that old property and is taxed on that particular assessment at the commercial rate. The business park doesn't show here as it's rated separately. However, for your information, the percentage assessment increase in the special rates business park is 0.6%. Last year, it was much higher at 3.8%. What does this mean? It means that we have some new revenue based on the assessment increase that we've received through the cap and through some growth at 2021 mill rates. And this is net of the cap and allowance for losses. Residential resource with the percentage increase of 2.6% affords us $147,300 in new revenue. Commercial is down 0.2%. I mentioned that before. We've lost about $5,500 in commercial revenue based from last year's, using last year's rates based on this assessment. The payments in lieu of tax for the federal and provincial governments will give us around an additional $21,000. So the net increase in tax dollars to work with is $162,800. We also have some area rates. The change in the area rate revenue, fire area rate and hydrant area rate will afford $14,400 we'll have to collect. We don't keep that money. We give it to the Kentville Water Commission and we transfer it over to the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department. There's also a small change in the economic development rate based on the assessment increase. But it does mean that the amount that we're going to collect has gone down $600 from last year. So the net increase in tax revenue, $176,600 overall. And the change in the special rate, which is the change in the industrial, in the business park, will give us an additional $4,500 based on that special rate. So the total increase in tax revenue from all sources is $181,000.
Deb, can I ask a question? So the 162.8 is in our pockets, right? It's only the 14.4 that goes out to Water Commission and Fire.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So we're going to move now to the fixed costs that we have in our budget. We have mandatory expenditures, firstly. And these are taxes that we collect for and are payable to the province of Nova Scotia Property Valuation Services Limited. So you see the various purposes there. You can see the comparators between 2020 and 2021, and this year 21-22, and the increase decrease. So for assessment services, it's gone down slightly, $300 savings to this budget. No changes in corrections, no changes in prosecution, no changes in the housing, no changes in the library. This is budget to budget, of course. And education did give us quite a significant lift this year. We're up $74,000 in education costs payable to the Annapolis Valley District School Board. And we have in net total $73,700 change in mandatory expenditures. This is about a 4% increase.
Yeah, that education number is based on the number of students that are enrolled in our KCA and our high schools?
It's on the students whose addresses are Kentville. So it's a number of students and it's a calculation number of students in uniform assessment.
Okay, thank you.
So the next fixed cost is the joint boards. These are amounts that are payable to our service delivery partners. See the purpose in the left-hand column, you can see the two comparative years for the budget and the increase and decrease. We're looking at Kentville Volunteer Fire Department operating. We belong to the Joint Fire Services Commission, which with the County of Kings and the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department. That particular operating cost has gone down $1,700 from last year. King's inspections and 911 are amounts that are paid to the County of Kings. Fire inspection is based on a new contract, while the building inspection services is an estimate based on prior years. Fire last year was $58,500. This year, the budget holds $43,000. Building inspection last year was $48,500. This year, the budget has moved downwards $32,700. So it's a fair significant savings in those particular inspection services provided by the County of Kings. The 911 system increases slightly just with the signing, with the amount that the county charges us for maintenance of the 911 system.
Deb, is this a time that I can ask a question from inside the large document? If it's joint boards like Remo, for example, under our on page 13-3 of the budget sheet here, we have budgeted in 21-22 $12,000 for animal control. And I noticed that was also under protective services. So I'm thinking these are the same, this is the same figure and it's for Remo, is that right?
No, Remo is located in the
It's on 13-2.
15-2.
And then I see it on 13-3.
13-2 on 13-3. What do you see on 13-3? Animal control.
Protective services, animal control.
No, Remo is
That's
is Regional Emergency Measures Organization. That is or an agreement that we've struck with the Valley Partners. Our share is $11,900. That agreement did end, but I think we're continuing it at the same rates.
Yeah.
Right.
But the animal control is not related to the Remo.
So if you look at the first block at the top of the page, Councillor Maxwell, it says Department is Protective Services. And then the next block on page 13-2, and then the next block is emergency measures. When you go to 13-3, it's still under protective services, so that high level department, but it's other protective services.
Right.
So it's different budget items under that department.
So we're not budgeting $12,000 in two different places for animal control, are we?
No, just one.
Emergency measures is not animal control.
Okay. Well, it says other okay. It's under debt charges, emergency measures and other protection. Okay, so it's just one charge, $12,000 under protective services.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's the high level department.
okay,
And then it breaks down into other protective services.
okay.
Yeah.
So do we know how much we actually use out of that? Like how often are we spending, or how much of that $12,000 are we spending running after animals in the town of Kentville? Do we know?
It's a firm fixed price with the SPCA.
Okay,
So if there's an issue, then SPCA is called and they'll come and take care of it.
and that would be anything, chickens, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think they do chickens, but,
Okay.
I mean, people are allowed to have chickens in Kentville, but I don't believe that that's correct. Julia, did you want to weigh in on that?
$12,000 for animal control in town seems very, very high to me, a high charge from the SPCA. And I'm just wondering how much we actually, use of that $12,000.
It was actually quite a bit higher before we migrated over to the SPCA. So if you go back about 3 years, when we had a private contractor that charged by the service, it was much higher.
But again, I'm just asking how much of that do we actually spend?
I can tell you
We actually do a fair number of animal control calls. We
Okay.
always try first to find them a home via Facebook, but we do frequently have to take an animal over to the SPCA. So I would say we use them quite a bit. And from what I'm told, other people pay, I think the $12,000 is actually quite a bargain.
Good deal. Okay, thank you very much, Chief.
Okay. So we'll move along to the next line, which is King's Transit. King's Transit Authority has provided us with a $60,100 lift in this particular budget. And it relates mostly to the loss of fares and extra cleaning and whatnot that they have to do related to COVID. They've actually reduced or stopped one of their routes, which did take the core down slightly. However, we have separated, if you notice in the budget document, we separated it into two sections. There's a core section, which is down slightly, and a COVID piece that is up around $66,100. And I think they were down $6,000 from in the core from last year. So the net, the two is $60,100. We're going to be removing, you'll see later on, we'll be removing $66,100 from the safe restart for King's Transit from the reserve fund that we have set aside for King's Transit purposes to offset the increase in the particular line item for King's Transit. So it'll be a nil effect actually to the tax rate. King's point to point usually increases around the cost of living. So that $300 is basically a lift of the cost of living. Valley Waste budget has increased 1.7%. Our share of Valley Waste for 21-22 is 9.9%. And this $10,200 increase that they've provided to us in this budget is going to be offset by reserve funds, $10,200. Valley Waste Reserve, operating reserve contains a significant sum of money, around $153,000. So rather than have our taxpayers absorb that, we'll remove the $10,200 from the reserve and offset that increase from Valley Waste. King's Landfill, $8,000 has moved down to $5,600. It's a saving of $2,400. And this is based on actual billing from last year. And the Valley Rent, there's no change in Valley Rent. So we're looking at joint boards and commissions up 2.9% over last year. The next fixed cost we're going to look at is commitments. These are funds that are committed by council and through agreements. We have the reduced tax, which is the section 69, which is low income, and section 71, which is charitable organizations. We've moved those down slightly, $4,000 from last year. And it's based basically on usage from last year. The details of fewer people applied for the section 69 last year, and section 71, not only did some of the assessments go down in the charitable organizations, but our tax rates have remained fairly stable. So we've taken $4,000 off of that particular line item. Kentville Police Service Dispatch Services is up $2,400. It's basically a cost of living from for the services provided by the Bridgewater Detachment. Custody services was discounted $5,000, and this is the custody services of the RCMP detachment in Minus. There's been no change to the economic development levy or to the payment to Kentville Business Community, $113,800. Last year is identical to what we have built into this budget. The PACE program was a program that was in our budget last year. That's been removed. That's minus $5,000. There, however, was an agreement with council has approved a $5,000 climate change plan, which is related to FCM program. So we've added that $5,000 in for climate change plan into this particular section. There's a grant in the recreation budget. All the grants, by the way, grants to organizations are in this budget as they were last year. This is a grant that probably could be moved to the surplus account that we have in administration, but I left it here. It's the final payment was made to the soccer dome last year for $5,000, but I did leave the grant in here just to make it comparable to the prior year. The library lease is up $1,000, and it's purely related to the cost of living, which was in the month of February, which was 1.2%. So overall commitments are reduced in this budget by about 1.4% from last year.
Deb, before you go on, could you explain to our new members where the money comes from for the economic development, the 13?
Yes, the economic development, Kentville business community receives money from the town of Kentville. It's based on assessments, it's actually a rate, you'll see separately. It's based on a percentage from residential, a percentage from commercial, and a percentage from the Kentville Business Park. So those particular, the mathematics is done behind the scenes. So you'll see an economic development rate for residential, an economic development rate for commercial, and an economic development rate for the business park. Most of the $113,800 is paid by the commercial sector and the business park sector. The residential sector pays a small amount of this particular charge, but it was felt that the business community needed to be the leaders in looking after this type of endeavor that they're interested in. So the businesses in town, the commercial entities in town pick up the larger portion of this tax.
Thank you.
Can I just make a note on that, your worship? Just that if council remembers, they had asked for, sorry, 135,000. But their grants for the trees wasn't successful, so they would require those extra funds.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, one question here, if you're saying that residential pays a small percentage of that economic development fee?
Yes,
Do we know what
0.58
percentage?
cents.
so it's, I was going to say, I could tell what the rates are built into this budget. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, the residential rate would be 0.0016%. Commercial is 10, and a third cent, 10, almost 10, and then 2/5 cent. Business park is about 7 and 2/5 cents.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to other fixed expenditures. These are expenditures that are required by legislation and general accepted accounting principles and PSAB requirements, public accounting requirements. We have debt repayment first. Debt repayment has dropped significantly from the previous year, $137,700 savings to this budget. We had a large balloon payment hit come up the last fall, so that was part of the large amount for last year. Of course, we've borrowed less over the last few years, and interest rates are much lower than they were, say, 10 years ago. So that also plays a factor in the decrease in debt repayment. However, it's good news for the budget. Allowances are down $4,200. This is the allowance related to the sick leave accrual. I've removed $5,000 from that, but we've increased allowance for doubtful accounts for some of the receivables up slightly. So the net change between those two is $4,200 savings. The area rates have decreased from the previous year by $28,500. We have 2 area rates. So the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department area rate, which is paid to the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department for their capital acquisition purposes, and the Kentville Water Commission area rate, or the hydrant area rate as we call it, which is paid to the Kentville Water Commission. Both area rates are assessment based, so they're based on the assessments in the town of Kentville. The Kentville the fire department area rate has increased slightly from last year. It's gone up about a 0.25%. This budget was approved at the Joint Fire Services Committee meeting and at a ratepayers meeting held on March the 29th, 2021. And it's contained in the Joint Fire Services agreement. It's based on a formula of the assessment base of the town and the county residents within the Kentville Fire District. The town of Kentville and the County of Kings both piggyback the fire area rate on their tax levies. But we both charge a 4% administration fee plus HST to the fire department for providing this service to them. So there's a small revenue stream that comes in related to billing this out. The Kentville Water Commission area rate is increased slightly from 8.75 cents to approximately 9 cents. It's based on a formula provided by the Utility Review Board. The rate increased slightly to collect a shortfall in last year's rate at the end of March. So the total increase in area rates is about 1/4 cent per 100. The next one is the operating reserve. There's no change in the transfers to the operating reserve from last year. And the election, which was in the legislative budget last year, has been removed. So that provided $40,000 savings to the operating budget. So overall, we're down $210,400 or about 10%. Next fixed cost is remuneration. This is the town's full-time employees, the non-bargaining employees, the QP employees, our unionized employees, the Atlantic Police Association employees and council. So we have a breakdown basically of changes in the remuneration from 2021 to 21-22. We have a lift for APA and QP. There's according to their contracts, the QP lift is 2.1% and the APA lift in this budget is 2.5%. The non-bargaining council has been also afforded a lift as per past practice, of which marries and matches the QP lift of around 2.1%. Benefits are increased in this budget, $60,500 all across the board. PSAB accrual, which is required by PSAB requirements, is up $19,300. We have to accrue 4 days of wages this year, so that is around $19,300. There are class changes and merit increases for various employees and various staffing changes that have happened throughout the year, people leaving, people coming, that type of thing, which you can see there in those two lines. So the remuneration in 21-22 is around $5.3 million.
Yeah,
Yes,
and did you say the benefits were up 60,500? That's a raise?
yes.
Is that cost of living or what is that?
Benefits are related to our amounts that we have to pay to the federal and provincial government for CPT and EI workers' compensation.
Yeah.
And so all of those markers increased as well as the thresholds increased. So it, it's just math. We have to pay the federal government.
Yeah, those are federal government
Yes.
increases that we have to absorb there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And also the pension expenditure also increased from last year from 7.5% to 8%.
Great, thank you.
So we'll do a summary of the fixed expenditures. This is all of those things that we just talked about compared to the prior year, the increase and the decrease. We've gone through that. So the total fixed expenses you can see in the middle of the slide for this year is $10,662,800. It's an increase of $134,600 from the prior year. The total expenditures in this budget, $13,670,200. And we're looking at an increase from overall of $189,600 in this budget. It was about 1.4%. But what it leaves council to debate this evening is around $3 million. That is the amount that is actually open for debate. The rest of those costs cannot be touched because they're mandated, legislated, or committed in some fashion.
And what do you mean by open for debate?
It's $3 million is what you can basically say you like or don't like in this budget, I guess.
So we can put it somewhere, is that what you're saying?
It's discretionary.
It's discretionary, we can say we'd like to direct that to sidewalks, or we'd like.
No, this is the amount that is in the budget that's built into the operating budget that you have before you, that is to be debate or discuss or say you don't like or do like. The rest of the budget, the $10 million, the $10.7 million is fixed. It's basically $10 million, $10.7 million of your $13 million that's already spoken for.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it can't go to sidewalks, sidewalks are capital, so this is
I
operational.
realized that when I said it, but yeah, I couldn't think of another example right away.
All right then, so we'll move on to the expenditures, and we're going to go through department by department. High level discussion on each of the departments, changes in the departments from the prior year. So the first one is the legislative department. We're looking at a change, that's a change downwards of 10.6% down, $30,500. Remuneration and benefits for council move upwards, $9,500. And the election, of course, being removed from this budget is a discount of $40,000. So for draft one, we're looking at legislative being down from last year, $30,500. Stop me, if you don't stop me, I'm going to keep going. Okay, the next section is general administration. This is finance, IT, administration, upstairs. We're looking at a change of $84,400 or 6.2% increase. And we're looking at the changes coming from these things. Remuneration and benefits, all in for all employees in this particular department, $79,400. We have office expense up very slightly, $5,600. It's mostly due to legal retainers and also general insurance. Information technology is up $3,600, and it's increased due to web hosting and maintenance support for IT systems and applications. Building is up a very small amount, $1,500. While electricity and maintenance of building increased, we've also added a line item for COVID-19 expenses, which accumulates PPE and disinfection protocols. It's offsets by the removal of the Cochrane building maintenance because that building was sold in January. So that gave us about $20,000 in savings in that. So the net increase in building is $1,500. Assessment services is down $300 from last year. That's payment to the property valuation services. Reduced taxes, that's section 69 and 71 I talked about a few moments ago. It's down $4,000. Debt interest and the discount on the debenture is up slightly, $2,800, and that is calculated. We know what that is. We have that. We have that figure given to us. We know our own debt payment from the next 10 years. Valuation allowances are down $4,200. So in draft one, we're looking at administration being up $4,400.
Yeah. On 6-1, we have revenue coming in from animal licenses, 1,700. Where does that go? Like, where can that be used? Can that be directed somewhere like to the dog park? Like, so people that pay their dog fees or the animal fees, can that money go to the dog park for the dog park, or what do we use it for?
That money just goes into general revenue for general purposes.
Can we move it somewhere else, like in operating or something, so that it is directed to somewhere that it can actually be used for what we're collecting it for?
It is in the operating budget. If council wants to have that money go to the dog park, they can say that money goes to the dog park, to maintenance of the dog park, whatever, but it still has to, that revenue.
It sits right there.
Yeah,
But we could, as a council, direct that money to go to like the dog park when the dog park's built. Because that park is going to cost money to keep it clean and to, fence it and all that kind of things. And it's going to be ongoing maintenance costs there. So I'm just wondering if we're collecting that for dogs mostly.
we don't actually net those types of expenditures in the budget. The money is collected for animal licenses, and the dog park or whatever is maintained. It's sort of in one hand and in the other hand. So the money we're collecting, it doesn't necessarily have to specifically go towards the dog park. The money that's collected for animal licenses will be used to look after the dog park, but you don't have to actually segregate. We don't net it. It can't be shown in the budget. I mean, it can't be shown in the information that we present to you on a monthly basis that we collected this and the dog park costs that. I mean, I could do that for a million things, but it would take forever to do the accounting and the paperwork in order to get it a report to you that makes any sense.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
Sorry
Go
if
ahead.
it's Rachel. Part of the deal with the dog park, we've partnered with the village of New Minas. So it's actually the town of Kentville and village of New Minas Dog Park, and New Minas will be taking over all maintenance.
Okay, that's
Good,
good.
you know.
Okay, I was just thinking and wondering, so thank you.
All right, so we'll move on then to community policing. We're looking at community policing moving upwards 5.3%. It's changed about $125,300. We're looking at the remuneration and benefits, overtime, stat time, and end time, increasing the budget by $109,400. This relates to the settlement of the AK agreement, and last year the first bump wasn't put in for their first year of their new contract because it wasn't settled at the time. So we're really looking at 2.5 changes in the remuneration of the police service officers, 2.5% each year, and so compounded, it would be around 5.1% increase. Last year, the change in the police salaries was shown in the transfers to reserve because we took the money, we recorded the money there and transferred it into operating reserve. So when they settled their contract, we pulled the money back in through revenue this past year in order to offset the change in their salaries in 2021. Office expense is up $1,200 net, and this is the office expense and uniform section. Insurance increased and other expenses have increased in the police budget. Funding has also been provided for counseling members. The uniforms account was decreased by $5,000 from the prior year. Under building, we're down on the building $2,800. Communications IT is up $3,400. There's increased in cost of living of the dispatch service, and IT has increased $1,000 to maintain the appropriate technology for Kentville Police Service. For vehicle, they're up $3,100, and it's related to insurance, vehicle insurance, and programs are up $11,000. It's related to a new program the RCMP is rolling out, which is the analysis of cell phones, police service cell phones. It's around $2,000 for each cell phone. That's what the chief is anticipating. So we built that into the budget in preparation for that rollout from the RCMP. It's offset somewhat by a reduction in the cost of custody service at the New Minas detachment, but all in the program section is up $11,000. The next section is protection and sales of service, and this is back check services, and this is purely remuneration of the employees involved in the back check services at the Kentville Police Service. We're looking at a change of $4,800 increase, about 3.2%, and it's purely related to the cost of living and benefit changes for those employees, $4,800. The next section is protection law enforcement. We're looking at this budget moving downwards, $28,100, down to 12.5%. We're looking at corrections, mandatory, prosecution, no changes in either one of those. Those are provincially mandated. Legal, we're moving down $30,000. The collective agreement settled last year. So we're leaving some money in for legal services, but not the amount that was there the prior year. Remuneration and benefits are up $2,300 related to crossing guards and the bylaw officer. And we have the changes, of course, changes I mentioned before in upper level government deductions and requirements related to CPTEI and WCB, and it's combined with the lift of 2.1%, mirroring the QB lift for non-union employees. Miscellaneous expenses is down $400 in this particular section, all in $28,100 decrease from the prior year. Under protection, fire protection, this is the area rates and the hydrant area rates and the transfer to Kentville Volunteer Fire Department. So we're looking at a change in this budget down $30,200. It's down about 3.4% from the prior year. Kentville Volunteer Fire Department operating, which is the joint boards, down $1,700. I spoke to that earlier this evening. The area rate for Kentville Volunteer Fire Department is up $5,300 from the last year, and hydrant area rate for Kentville Water Commission is down $33,800. Section protection, emergency measures and other. This particular section is down $41,000 from last year, 23.3% decrease. We're looking at debt interest, which is a fixed cost, down $10,300 in this section. We have no change in the EMO section of this budget. 911 system is up very slightly, $500. Building inspection and fire inspection, which I spoke of a little bit earlier, paid to the County of Kings for their providing those services for us. Both of those sections are down significantly, $15,800 for building inspection and $15,500 for fire inspection, all in $41,100 down from last year in this particular section.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just going back a little bit to law enforcement legal down 30,000. Is that because we've settled the contract, so that would have been the contract settlement, the difference there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move then out of protective services, and we're going to move into transportation services. There's 2 slides in this particular section. Common services, the first one, we're looking at this segment moving up $47,200 or 4.9%. Remuneration has moved up $48,900 from last year. The increase is due to the QP lift along with increases in the benefit expenses. And there was also a change in the position of a worker moving from part-time to full-time. We have the sick leave expense moving up $11,000 as past budget figures fell short of the actual. And last year, 2021, the sick leave expense was $107,000. The prior year it was $81,000. So we've kind of picked it in the middle, increased the budget from the prior year by $11,000. Office expenses are increased $5,800 related to general insurance. This is mostly related to liability, errors and omissions. Building has gone down $900 from the prior year. Communications up very small amount, $500, and vehicle is down $18,100 as one piece of leased heavy equipment will be removed and purchased through the capital budget, and you'll see that sometime next week. Equipment parts and supplies are reduced slightly from last year as well for the mechanic to do his job on repairing and maintaining the rolling stock.
Sorry, Deb, what did you say the sick leave expense was in 2021?
About $107,000 with the last thing I pulled, I pulled off of our general ledger.
Okay, and that, and we had budgeted less, right?
We budgeted less. So I've increased the budget, hopefully we might hit a sweet spot there somewhere.
Okay, yeah.
The next section is transportation road transport. This particular segment has moved downwards $26,500 or 3.4%. These are the components of this particular section. Street repairs is up $5,000, and we know that there are always streets to have potholes filled and whatnot, depending on how rough the winter was. So street repairs has moved up $5,000 from last year. Sidewalk repairs, however, has moved down $10,000 from the prior year. Storm sewers, likewise, $10,000 decrease. Street cleaning down $1,000 from the prior year. And snow removal, we've moved down $10,000 from the prior year. Snow removal, we only used about 65% of the snow removal budget this past year. Winters have changed. We know this, but you never know when we're going to get a snow again. So for council's information, we have $50,000 in our operating reserves slated for snow removal. So should anything untoward happen, we have plenty of money to offset this $10,000 decrease, and hopefully we never have to use it, in my opinion. Street lighting is up $4,000. It's increased slightly because more lights have been added and the power rates have increased slightly. And the parking lot maintenance and traffic services are down $4,500 due to a contract for snow clearing, which is less than the prior commitment that we were involved in years before. So we're looking at this particular section on road transport down $26,500 from the prior year.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, yeah, sorry. Under the street lighting, do you know if the new light for the bridge would be added under that, or is that's going to be?
You'll see the new lighting for the bridge and the capital budget.
Thank you.
Question, Deb.
Yes.
The sidewalk repairs,
Mhm.
down $10,000. I see here on page 14-3 that we had $5,000 in 2021 and we're down to 1,000. Our sidewalks are not in good shape. And I don't understand why we're dropping our sidewalk repairs at a time when we're looking to make the town more accessible and they're already a mess. I just do not understand that drop. Can somebody explain that, please?
Well, the actual figure that for sidewalk repairs last year was around $6,000 and our budget last year was $15,000. So there wasn't a lot of work done on sidewalk repairs. I think that the Green Infrastructure Program or the Active Transportation Program, which you'll see in the capital budget, will be addressing the changes in our sidewalks, and you'll be seeing massive changes happening in that type of thing. But that would be a capital type of thing. But we'd be dealing, this is just maintaining the sidewalks and making sure that there's less risk of trip and falls, for example.
Okay, so you're thinking, and the administration is thinking that the problems that we have right now with our sidewalks are going to be able to be taken care of through that accessibility plan
Yes.
and so on.
Yes.
Director Bell, did you want to speak?
I just wanted, I wanted to add that that's operational. So those are in-house repairs that we don't spend a lot of money, in-house, and it's capital improvements that are, even the sidewalks that were repaired last year on Prospect or Academy, and those sorts of places were done through the capital program. But the 15,000 item from last year reduced to 5 was in-house, essentially done by Public Works, and that's why it hasn't been really utilized for the most part and done through capital.
I just didn't want the public to think that we were ignoring our sidewalks when everybody is talking about how bad they are. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay. The next section is the transportation, public transit and other. This section has changed upwards $42,600, and it's an increase of around 11% from the prior year. We're looking at King's Transit, which is one of our going forwards, up $60,100. The core, as I mentioned before, has decreased by $6,000. However, their COVID, the loss of fare revenue and their increases in expenditures related to COVID disinfection has increased $66,100. The net of the two, $60,100 to this budget. And as I mentioned before, that amount will be withdrawn from our operating reserve, the King's Transit Safe Restart funds that were afforded to us by the provincial government late last year. Kings Point to Point up $3,300 in this particular budget. Debt interest is down in transportation, $15,000 from the prior year. And outside work, which is work done by the Public Works crew for our own funds or for some outside entities, if they do get asked to do that, it's down $2,800. So in this draft, removing most of it comes from our all comes from our King's Transit. Our King's Transit list of $60,000, but the net for this section, $42,600 increase.
So Deb, the amount that will be taken from the operating reserve will be the full 60,100 or just the net, the 42,600?
It'll be from the operating reserve for King's Transit, it'll be the $60,100.
Okay, the full amount.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Environmental health is our next section. And this is where we have our landfill and Valley Solid Waste Management Authority. Changes is fairly small, increase of $4,200 from the prior year. Solid waste collection, which is our own internal solid waste collection by the Public Works crew, and are taking our refuse to the collection center at Valley Waste. The tipping fees we've moved them downward $2,100 from the prior year. Landfill Kings County, which is a joint board that's a charge for them maintaining the Meadowview site, which has been closed for years, is down $2,400 from the prior year. Valley Region Solid Waste Management Authority has increased this budget by $10,200. And other pollution, which has never been used, I don't think it's been used for the past 3 to 4 years. We've just removed that particular line from the budget to savings of $1,500. As I mentioned before, the Valley Waste increase will be coming from the Valley Waste operating reserve, which has significant funds. So rather than pass that on to the taxpayer, we'll pay for that from our reserve funds.
Yeah, what is other air pollution?
Well, it was, I think, related to
Wasn't it
Green
carbon
initiatives,
offset?
carbon
offset?
carbon offset type of things, that type of thing. So it just hasn't been used. So we've just removed the amount from the budget for putting something in there if it hasn't been used for years. So the next section is housing and other public health. We're looking at no change, $96,500 in this particular section. Most of it relates to the deficit of the Western Region Housing Authority, which is a mandatory cost. Each year it's been about $90,000. We typically get a bill sometime in June. So we've just built in a $90,000 cushion. Some years we make it like a bandit and it's less, and some years it's not. So it's the sweet spots for us seems to be about $90,000. Public health grants, which are in the budget as they were last year, I mentioned that before. There's no change there. So there's no change in this particular segment. Under environmental development planning, we're looking at a change downwards in this budget of $13,400, about 5.5% decrease. Remuneration and benefits are down $13,700. There's a student cut from the budget and the sharing of the customer service representative, which we were sharing one representative between 3 departments. That has been removed. That customer service representative sits in the finance department, and administration and finance pick up 100% of that particular salary. So there is a reduction in environmental development in the remuneration section because of that. Office expense up very slightly, $300. The next section is community development. This section is down from the prior year, $9,800, about 2.5% decrease. Remuneration and benefits for employees in this particular section relates to the cost of living and benefit increases, $2,800 increase. However, their office expenses have gone down $2,500 from the prior year. Under community economic development, we're down $1,500 from the prior year. The PACE program, which was in the budget last year, has been removed at $5,000. However, there's been an FCM climate change action plan, FCM, related to FCM, a commitment that council made in January, I believe this year, of $5,000. That's been added into the budget. There's also an additional ask for climate change, building a retrofit map, and this would be a joint venture with the Valley units to basically get a map on how to retrofit your buildings for climate change. So they're looking for our share of that particular commitment being $5,000. Debt charges in this particular section are down $5,700, and tourism overall is down $11,400. CET consulting is cut in half in this budget. The farmers market is removed from the budget, which was around $8,400 expenditure last year, and the VIC operation is down about $500. We have some changes also in the events, expected events and promotions and whatnot. So some of them have been canceled for this year. Apple Blossom, I believe, has been canceled. So some of these things have been removed from the budget as well. So promotions and Apple Blossom Festival, all in just a slight increase of $3,500 overall. This particular section of community development is down $9,800. We move now into the recreation administration. The change is an increase of $32,400. It's up about 6.4%. Remuneration is based on the cost of living and the cubic lift at 2.1%, as well as the benefit increases from the upper levels of government. Office expenses are up $5,400. Professional fees are up slightly from last year because we are putting in about a $20,000 ask for our share of a proposed regional feasibility study for a health and wellness center. Insurance and liability and errors and emissions is increased over last year. And many other office expenditures are reduced compared to last year's budget. The net in office expenses overall lifted $5,400. Vehicle expenses up $1,400 in this budget are related to insurance for vehicles in the recreation department and the leasing of equipment.
Deb, how many staff fall under recreation admin? Is it 4?
5.
5, okay. Thank you.
We have recreation programs as the next particular segment. This particular segment is a change of $63,000, up 75.2%. We're looking at grants, no change in the grants section, but council will be debating grants at some future meeting or later this evening. Programs are up $32,000 from last year. The swimming pool is back in the budget. It was out last year, if you recall. So we have the swimming pool back in the budget. This is about $16,500 increase net with expenditures of the staffing plus the revenue streams that are expected for enrollment. Day camp increases due to the expected decline in registration. So the director is expecting that registrations may not meet what we had hoped the year before. We have multi-sport camp increases as well due to the decline, also in expected decline in registration, $4,500. The Parks Division is increased due to the addition of another part-time park attendant in addition to the part-time horticulture. So that's a lift of $31,000 in that particular section to help with the maintenance of the parks and the trees and the planting of the trees.
Sarah, on page 21-1, we have under grants, we did these last year, Annapolis Valley Trail Coalition and the Goose Pack Curling Club at $8,500. Can we make a line between those? Like, I think it was $1,500 to the Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition would be $7,000 for the curling club. Can we separate those off and show what those actual grants were?
Well, actually, the amounts were as follows. Annapolis Valley Trail Coalition was $1,500. The Goose Cat Curling Club was $2,000. And the Soccer Dome, the third year of the 3-year commitment that we made to the Soccer Dome was $5,000.
Okay, yeah.
And that Soccer Dome agreement has expired. Mhm.
So can we instead, and Soccer Dome should be listed there, I guess. So can we just itemize those with the actual figures for next time?
Yeah.
Dan, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move then into recreation facilities. We're looking at a very small change in recreation facilities, up $1,800. Remuneration and benefits related to the arena staff up $5,200. Utilities, building and office for the arena down $20,100. Repairs and maintenance on equipment is reduced about $21,500. So repairs that were taking place last year have been done. So we have been able to reduce the building and office section for the arena down $20,100. So the parks section is up $9,300. Parks and playgrounds increased, includes full-time staff in the arena and the summer students. Other facilities is up, I guess you say are up $7,400. The swimming pool is back to full strength, and that's an increase of $7,000. And this is where we find the repairs and maintenance costs, the chemicals, the power, and the insurance. So most of the increase in the other facilities relates to the swimming pool coming back on stream. Recreation debt charges and cultural is down $10,700 from the prior year. We have debt interest down $10,700 from this budget, and the transfer to the regional library is identical to the figure that it was last year. No change in the transfer to the library. Education is up $74,000 from the previous year. This is the appropriation of the Regional Center for Education. Some statistics on this, we assume the provincial rate will remain stable at 30.48%. Kentville's percentage has increased from 9.88% to 10.041%. Student population for Kentville fell from 782 to 763 students. That's down 19 students from last year. The cost per student increased from $1,964 to $2,110. And this is based on a unique agreement in the Valley region, which is a calculation of uniform assessment and student population in each municipal unit of the Annapolis Valley Regional Center for Education. And it includes Kings, Kentville, Wolfville, Berwick, and the former town of Hantsport still remains in this. So that's the down and dirty of the education increase.
When's the last time that agreement was revisited or?
It has never been revisited in as long as I've been here.
We don't want it to be.
We don't want it to be revisited.
It's a good deal
It's
for
a
us.
good- yeah.
Yeah, Kings County tried to get it changed.
That's
Years
right.
ago.
That's
Years
what
ago.
I
That was
was, yeah.
before our.
Yes,
our-
yes, yes, okay,
yes.
yes, I remember that.
So Deb, how many students are we down?
We're down 19 students from last year.
Do we know if that's at the elementary school, middle school, or both?
I have the list of the schools and the number of students in each school, but I didn't do the math on where the students were.
Well, probably a combination. Thank you.
Under financing and transfers on the expenditure side of the ledger, we're looking at the change downwards $94,800. Debt charges principal, the principal repayment on our long-term debt, down $98,800 from the prior year. There are no changes in the transfers to our to the reserve, operating reserve, or to the capital reserve. The transfers to those reserve funds, which are identical to what they were last year. Capital paid from operations. This is capital paid from current revenues, 21-22, up $4,000, and this relates to the purchase of one of the police cars, capital acquisition for Kentville Police Service. So we're looking at $94,800 decrease in this particular section. So we're looking at an expenditure summary. We're looking at budget for 21-22, moving upwards $189,600. It's an increase of 1.4% to $13,670,200. I've just listed all of the departments we just talked about and the changes upwards and downwards, the increase and decrease for each of the departments. You can see the total $189,600. It's an increase of 1.4%. The last posting of the cost of living for Nova Scotia by Stats Can is 1.2%.
Deb, you included the, I asked you last time and you were very kind to do it, to include the legal costs, and you did a separate page up on that.
Yes.
Can we look at that at some point? I have a lot of questions about it. Just to understand it.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, when would be an appropriate time to,
So let us get through the presentation first.
okay, we'll do it after the presentation. Thank you.
all right. So that is the expenditure side of the ledger. So now we're going to move ourselves into the revenue streams for 21-22. So we collect taxes that are other than property tax rate. So we separate those so we can calculate the change in the taxes for the business park, for example, hydrant area rate and the frontages or betterment charges that are sometimes called. We're looking at taxes other than taxation moving downwards $25,800, down 1.6% from the prior year. Business park commercial is up $4,500 from the prior year. Fire area rate, which is paid over to the Kent Volunteer Fire Departments, collected, it's billed on one side and paid out on the other side, $5,300. The hydrant area rate, which is collected and paid to the Kentville Water Utility, is down $33,800. And frontages or betterments curb charges are down $1,800 from the prior year. That's because a lot of those properties have sold, and when they're sold, they pay their frontages off at the time of the sale. So fewer properties in town actually have frontage charges attached to them.
For our new members of council, the business park commercial is at a special rate, and it is at the same rate as Kings County commercial. And the reason for that is that when the business park was originally established in the town of Kentville, it was to encourage all, I'm going to say, industrial and heavy business to go to the park without problem of cost. And we have maintained that deal to this day.
So we'll move into services provided, the next section of the revenue streams. We're looking at this moving downward $17,400, down about 7.6%. The provincial secondment, this is a Kentville Police Services officer who is seconded for provincial purposes. That moves up $2,000. Local County of Kings transportation is down $19,900 from last year's budget. And this relates to the fact that we are not doing the sidewalk plan in the County of Kings. So we've removed that from the budget. Local County of Kings Library, County of Kings shares in 50% of the lease of the Kentville Library. The lease moved upwards based on the cost of living at February, 1.2%. It was $1,000 increase overall, so half of that is $500. So they're going to pay $500 extra for their share of the lease. The sales section is next. This is down $87,600, down 7.9% from the prior year. We sell our own services to our other agencies. We sell our town remunerations to Kentville Water Commission, Kentville Sewer, and to the Capital Fund. This mostly relates to public works, although the finance you see below, the section below, the finance department sells its services to the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department and to the County of Kings. We provide payroll services for one crossing guard for the County of Kings. It's up very slightly from last year, just $200. Police sales make the bulk of the difference in this particular section. This relates to back check services, down $95,000 from the prior year budget. And this is basically a guesstimate because of COVID and the fact that back checks has been struggling as with a lot of business trying to get itself back to full strength. We go on the side of caution and move that particular line item down $95,000. Other revenue is the next segment. We're looking at this moving upwards $35,900 or 3.1%. Rentals have moved up $35,700, which is really good news considering we've been through a pandemic. We're looking at the rentals increase as such. The town rents out the following things. The rec center has moved up $5,000 from last year. The pub and pool rent has been removed from this budget, down $500 for both of those items. Parking spaces, we rent parking spaces up $4,000 from the previous year's budget. We have cell towers in town, Eastlink, and right of ways and whatnot for cell towers and that type of thing. That's moved up very slightly, $600. The rail, there's a new lease for that building to 2025, and that's the Kentville Historical Society. Has a new lease, so that has given us an extra $500 in rentals this year, and the Calkin building has been sold. So we've lost rentals in this particular section, $34,400. So the total for the town rentals down $24,800. However, on the recreation side, the arena side, the ice rentals are slated to increase by $62,000 from the prior year. There's going to be a slight increase in rates there as well as an increase in usage. Public skate is up a small amount, $500. However, the director has discounted the miscellaneous section, which is share and table rent, down $2,000. That probably won't happen. So the total rink rentals have moved up $60,500 from last year. So the net of the two of them, the town and the arena, afford the rental increase of $35,700.
Deb, can I go back to back check just for 1 second? If the revenues are not down as much as we're forecasting, there are no other associated expenses with that, correct? That would be net out to us, would it?
There's the remuneration for the back check employees, so the revenue comes in and the remuneration for the employees, so the net of the two would be the amount that we actually pocket.
Yeah, no, I realize that, but I mean, in the 95,000,
Right.
like our expenses will
Yes.
associate, will stay the same, so it's,
Unless they are so busy, they
Yeah,
need to
they have
bring in
to.
more
Right.
full-time staff.
okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so the next section is unconditional transfers. We're looking at this decreasing $3,000 and relates to purely the HST offset grant. It's basically average of the last couple of years. We haven't really met our targets. It's basically an unknown. You don't know what you're going to get. So we erred on the side of caution here as well and taking that budget figure down $3,000. Conditional transfers. Change is very slight. It's down $800 from the prior year. This relates to a federal grant that existed last year that we don't have word that we're going to get any federal money. I know there have been many grants applied for, but we don't have concrete acknowledgement that we're going to get these grants. If we do, it will be an additional revenue to the town, which is great. So it will just add to a surplus position. Financing and transfers related to the revenue side of the ledger. We're looking this changing $125,500, or a decrease of 65.5% from the prior year. We're going to be bringing in the transfer from the operating reserve is down $28,700. The election has been moved. We brought in $35,200 last year to offset the election. We save money up every year to pay for the election, so it's not a big hit to the bottom line when the election occurs. But we also have a transfer coming in from the operating reserve for miscellaneous type of things that's related to an old photocopier and recreation leases, which will bring $6,500 into the town. So the net, the two of those items, $28,700 down. From operating reserve prior surpluses, were the change from year over year is an increase of $77,900. We're bringing in 4 2/5 cents of our surplus. We are posting a significant surplus this year, at least as far as I can tell today. It's still a significant surplus, and we have significant sums in our operating reserve as well. So we're bringing in around $234,000 from our operating reserves. Last year, we brought in about $156,300. The change between those two is an increase this year of $77,900. We're also bringing in $66,100 from the King's Transit Safe Restart operating reserve and $10,200 from the Valley Waste operating reserve to offset those large increases related to those joint partners. So all in, the increase in transfers from operating reserves, $125,500. So the revenue summary is that this is revenue outside of taxation. We're looking at a change of an increase of around $26,800 from prior year. We'll collect a revenue other than taxation of around $4.6 million. You can see the changes budget from the budget, prior year's budget listed there, and total for draft $126,800 in total. So what does this mean overall? So we're getting into the nitty-gritty. So we're looking at a short plot. We either have a surplus or shortfall in funding. However, we know the expenditures increased $189,600 in this budget. We know that other revenue increases $26,800. The difference between the two of them is $162,800 in a shortfall. But new tax dollars, budget to budget, from this year to last year, you can see those figures are calculated out based on the rates that from last year's rates. We're looking at the new tax dollars at $162,800. So the budget is essentially balanced. There is no shortfall in this budget that we're bringing for you tonight. We're looking at the general tax rate in this draft. Expenditures are $13,670,200 less revenue from other than taxation. $4,647,300, less the mandatory paid to the province, $2,006,000. The municipal tax levy in 21-22 will be $7,016,900. Our net taxable assessment, which was way back at the very beginning, one of those first early slides, $533,201,697. So municipal general rate is $101.31 and about 2/3 cents. The provincial mandatory rate is 37 and 2/3 cents, give or take, if we round that up. General rate, tax rate combined is $1.69 and about 2/5 cents, or 1/5 cent. We're looking at it being a drop of somewhere around 3/4 cents from last year. So the effect of the assessment increase on $100,000 assessment, we're only looking at residential because we don't have any assessment increase in commercials. Commercial typically decreases, not increases. So the cap, we know, is 0.3%. So on a $100,000 assessment using last year's tax rates, we're looking at the increase being $4.61 for the year, and which would be about a 0.3% increase. So the rates to balance this budget, we're looking at the provincial mandatory rates, I've mentioned before, about 37 and 2/3 cents. Fire area rate is about 3 and 3.75 cents. The hydro area rate is close to 9 cents. The economic development rate, you can see the difference there. We're looking at less than a cent for the residential side and about 10 and 3/3 cents for the commercial side. We're looking at other rates, residential about 50.5 cents. For commercial, the other rates are 60 and 3/4 cents. The residential municipal mill rate works out to be about $1.03 and some change. Commercial municipal real rate works out to be about $2.90 and 2/3 cents. And we end up with the total residential rate being identical to last year at $153.7. The total commercial rate is identical to last year, $351.42. So there is no change in the residential or the commercial rate in this budget.
Sorry, Director Kroll, the economic development rate's been the same for quite a while.
No, the economic development rate changes every year. It's very slightly changed.
Okay, we changed that though.
Pardon me?
It's changed by us though,
I changed.
or you changed it, I mean, but it's up to, the rates can be modified, or I guess we're the ones that we decide on that ultimately, or?
The rate is a mathematical based on assessment, the percentage that is afforded to the,
Okay.
for
So
the,
there's no flex on that, it's gonna come out of math.
it's, if we're billing that rate, then yes, there's no
Okay,
movement on it, unless you say you don't want residential to pick up any of it.
gotcha, okay,
It's based on our agreement with
Okay.
PBC.
okay,
So we determine the agreement and how
Right.
much we're going to pay them annually.
right,
And then Director
That's up,
Cole
yeah,
figures
right.
it out.
that's almost nothing.
It is,
Yeah,
it is. We need to ratify
okay,
that,
so
yes.
that could be a time to look at that, I guess,
It will be completely separate from
Okay.
this, yes. Yes.
thank you.
Deb, could you tell us what $1 is worth on our tax rate?
Yes, $1 on the tax rate, I don't have. One thing I didn't
Oh,
report.
sorry.
That's okay.
You usually have it. like-
I know, I usually have it right at the tip of my fingers, but that's one reason I brought everything under the sun but that.
Okay,
But I do have it, it's around,
okay,
I was, for it tonight, I can't find it.
yeah.
What else is new?
Oh, I guess
here it is.
1 cent.
Okay, 1 cent on the tax rate is $53,300. And that's the general rate.
Yes,
Commercial, 1 cent of commercial is around $8,100.
okay,
And 1 cent of residential is $45,200.
okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
$300, yep.
Thank you.
So comparing the rates from last year to this year, you can see that the residential rates, bottom line is the same. You can see the changes in the municipal mill rates, the mandatory rates, the economic development rates, fire area rate, and hydrant area rate. At the end of the day, all those things add up to the last year and this year, or we're looking at exactly the same rates for both residential and commercial. To balance the budget, residential, I just showed this slide as well, that you can see that we're looking at the total levy, $1.5375. We're looking at what happens with this, with $100,000 residential assessment with the 0.3% assessment lift. It's a very small amount added to their $100,000, 474. So it's a 0.3% increase for those residents who received a lift due to the cap. And we have the commercial rate, which is exactly the same as it was last year. The rates for the area rates and the economic development rates and whatnot have all changed, but at the end of the day, it all came out of the warrant, identical to last year. Okay, so basically that's the presentation. And we're looking for any questions, comments, direction that council may have.
Your worship, may we have a laboratory break?
Sure, a biological break, certainly. If Jason, could you shut us down for a few minutes? Or does he have to talk through?
I don't know.
It says stop sharing.
Well, I don't think I want to stop here because I might not get it going.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. It is 7:20, so if you could be back at 7:25, please.
I'm muting.
All right, Deb, did you want to look at that legal expense budget summary, page five? It's the very last page in your budget.
So each of the departments records any usage of legal services. Under general administration, we have, under administration, we have legal expense. In section 10, there is a retainer that is paid to our current legal counsel. It's increased around $300 from last year. It's around $11,000 this year. We anticipate, I don't think I received any notice that it's going to be more than that. And specifically, usage for legal services, we basically try to estimate what you might want to spend or what you will spend in legal services. $9,400 is what we increased it from $3,600 the prior year. Under law enforcement, legal expense last year was $40,000. This is in section 11-2. This year, it's been removed downwards $10,000, $30,000 because the collective agreement has been settled. However, there could be some reason to use legal services for some reason in policing, so we've left $10,000 in there for that. Under transportation services, typically not a lot of usage there. Depends on usage of any, well, just litigation that would go under transportation. It's very rare that we do have that. We've left that budget at $2,500. Environmental development services, legal expenses is where there was a lot of expenses incurred related to the sale of town land, for example. So that's stayed the same at $10,000. Recreation services, legal expenses moved downwards $10,000. It's rare that there's any legal expense used in recreation. So we've moved that budget downwards to reflect current usage.
Councilor Maxwell, you had some questions?
Yeah, I did. So I'm just wondering why we have those numbers repeated. So under law enforcement says 10,000 on one line and 10,000 on the next line.
Well, we have.
Yeah.
Okay, we present a 2-year budget to council. So the color, the yellow line, the yellow section is the current budget we're debating tonight,
Right.
21 to 22. The next column next to that, to the right of that, is next year's budget, 22, 23.
I know, but it's under 10,000,
It's the
10,000.
total.
Oh, it's just the total. It's just,
If you look at the one above, you see that.
It's a total.
94.
Okay,
And
it's the totals.
yeah,
Okay.
the total.
Okay, so under transportation services on 14-4, I think it shows $5,000. And then here
That's
2,500. So transportation services budgeted 5,000.
Oh, it's that on 14-4, it's other professional services, it's legal services, but also external engineering. So we anticipate that there would be $2,500 also in external engineering services provided to the Transportation Services Department.
Okay, but we wouldn't count it over here.
Well, that's not legal. An engineer is not a lawyer.
This is
Oh.
looking at just the legal stuff.
Okay, so
they were lumped together, but then
They're
this is
lumped
pulling it
together.
out separately.
okay, is that the same for recreation services? It said.
Yeah, all of them are the
4,020
same.
On,
So this is a
Page 20
duplicate,
says
this is a duplication of what's in your budget.
okay,
It's just presented so that you can see how much
Okay.
is there.
okay. So then my other question is, and this, because people ask me these questions and I can't answer them. So this is our town of Kentville, but then we have settlements and we have extenuating circumstances like the Park Street situation and the county settlement and things like that. And I think we use lawyers in Halifax. Where does all of that come in?
We would be responsible for the deductible related to any type of litigation that is warranted through our insurance
So
company.
those legal fees are all in our insurance.
Yes,
That
after
would
the
go through our
after the
insurance
deductible
for
has
those
been
types of
paid.
things.
Yes,
Yes, okay, that's good. That's what I just wanted to, I didn't understand because it doesn't show here. This is just town And then the other goes through insurance and gets paid out through insurance.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much, and thank you for doing that page.
Oh, you're welcome. Appreciate it.
Are there any further questions for the director with regards to anything that she's presented this evening or our budget? We still have a capital budget to look at, and we also have the grants program. So the director has basically left, I'm going to say breadcrumbs within here for our past way of doing our grants. And when we sit down, that will be ratified. But right now, we are looking at the operational budget tonight, which is $13,670,200, of which, as the director told us, we had 20% was discretion, or 22% was stuff that we had wiggle room with, and the rest of it were our fixed expenses, for lack of a better term. And because we are municipal government, we must have as much revenue coming in as we have expenses going out. The other thing for our new counselors, what you will notice is that anytime our staff applies for a grant, we still have to record the total price of something, and the grant is actually shown at the bottom of the ledger sheet. So for example, sometimes you'll hear that we're doing some green space upgrades, and it's only costing us $5,000, but when you look at the sheet, it says $10,000. It's because we're getting a $5,000 grant, but we still have to record it at the $10,000, and our director puts the $5,000 out at the bottom of the ledger sheet. So, just so you're cognizant of that when when you're looking at this much closer.
So that is to show while we're waiting for the money to come.
Exactly. So the other thing that I will express to you is that Kentville has always been in the lowest, the low five, so of towns in Nova Scotia for tax rates. And this new tax rate tonight will probably put us at the lowest tax rate for a town in Nova Scotia. So that's good news for the people that we serve, and for the services that are provided here in the town of Kentville. So it's an excellent budget, and our staff has done an incredible job. Thank you, Director Kroll. Thank you, directors, wherever you may be, whatever you're doing at this moment in time. We truly appreciate this. And Director, do you have a recommendation for us?
Well, I would recommend that this budget, unless you have any comments or concerns with what I presented tonight, that this budget for $13,670,200 for the year 2021 to 2022 be sent forward to the council meeting at the end of April for ratification.
Thank you. So therefore, we have a motion that we recommend this budget to council for approval of the draft 2021-2022 operational budget in the amount of $670,200 with no change to the tax rate to the April 26th council meeting.
13 million.
13 million.
13 million.
something.
Let me start over.
That one.
Get my nips on straight here. We have a recommendation for council to recommend approval of the draft 2021-2022 operational budget in the amount of $13,670,200 with no change to the tax rate to the April 26th council meeting. If someone could move that, please. Councilor Gerard, thank you.
Second.
And Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council recommend approval of the draft 2021-2022 operational budget in the amount of $13,670,200 with no change to the tax rate to the April 26th council meeting. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to recommend approval of the draft 2021-2022 operational budget in the amount of $13,670,200 with no change to the tax rate to the April 26th council meeting. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Yes.
Councilor Gerard?
Yes.
Councilor Huntley?
Yes.
Councilor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councilor York?
Yes.
Councilor Sabian?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. There being no further business, we require a motion to adjourn the operational budget council meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. And the time is 19:35.
We have comments.
What's that?
Did we have comments?
I don't know. No public comments. And I'm truly sorry for having missed that with the skate park, because there were a couple comments that were so good. And I mean, oh God, there's stuff falling apart underneath my chair. I may be electrocuted at any moment here.
That makes good TV.
Yeah, exactly. But there were a couple comments coming in on the skateboard park on Monday night that were really just absolutely heartfelt. And I wanted to read them, and somehow I shifted my papers and I missed the public comment part on my sheet. So I truly apologize to the folks that chimed in on that, but thank you very much. All right, and our capital budget is planned for
Tuesday.
next Tuesday at 6 p.m. So same bad channel, same bad place.
I believe we're live.
Still live.
We are. Okay, Jason,
Yes.
take us home.
He's taking some.
Okay.